And then he goes on and he speaks to all of us, whether you're a believer in Jesus or not. He says, I want you to pray that you would know God's will. I want you to live a life worthy of Jesus. I want you to absolutely bear fruit, eternal fruit, immense amount of fruit for God and for his glory, and spend your time on things that really matter for eternity's sake. And lastly, he says, hey, I want you to be a finisher. I want you to endure to the end. But then he goes on and he says, but I want you to celebrate what God's done in your life, what Jesus has done for you. And I want us to be thankful, want us to appreciate these things even in our lives today. And he goes on in verse 12 and he says this, giving thanks to the Father who has qualified you, this interesting word, who has qualified you to share in the inheritance of God's holy people, that is his saints, that is people who are positionally holy, into the kingdom of light. And that's just a fancy way of saying this. Jesus has qualified us. You see, back in this day, primarily if you were connected to God, you were a Jew. God's kingdom was primarily focused on the Jews, and the Jews were to take it to the rest of the world. Unfortunately, they didn't. So now you have this new thing where it's Jews and non-Jews. Everybody can come in and be a part of God's kingdom. And basically Paul's saying this, how did you get in? How did you get qualified? I mean, I remember as a kid, you remember this? Standing at the roller coasters like an amusement park, like Disney World or Six Flags or somewhere, and man, I could never qualify. Man, I wanted to get on that roller coaster. I really wanted to get on the roller coasters. I got on roller coasters when I was like 9. Because I mean big time roller coasters, because I was always a thrill seeker, always adventuresome and all that kind of stuff. But I never could qualify, never could get up to the 42 inches or whatever. And finally I did one day. And so what God is telling us here is this, Jesus qualified us. How did you get in? How did you get into God's kingdom? How did you get into having a relationship with God? How did you get qualified? And the answer is you didn't do it on your own merits. Jesus qualified you by his death, burial, and resurrection, God would say. And the fact of the matter is when I talk to people who are kind of spiritually fuzzy and a little bit spiritually confused, I say, well, when you're thinking about heaven, how do you think you're going to get in? 9 times out of 10, they'll say, because I've been a good person, because of my own merits, because I did more good things than I did bad, and they try to do the whole balance thing, it never works, the scale thing. And so the fact of the matter is he says, the first thing I want you to understand is the way you got in, the way you're okay with God is because Christ qualified you through his death, burial, and resurrection.